Hi, I'm Dr. Biju Raju. I'm a vitreoretinal surgeon, and I thank you for joining me in this video in the quest to understand the life and work of one of the greatest neuroscientists that we know. Many creative scientists have an artistic inclination. When art and science come together, a unique blend of newfound knowledge sheds light on otherwise unknown and uncharted territories. Here is the life of one of the brightest stars in the history of neuroscience, an artist and a scientist whose freehand drawings of the intricate microstructure of the brain still continues to captivate the connoisseurs exploring the human brain and finds his way into modern-day textbooks on the brain, even after a century. That great scientist and artist is none other than Santiago Ramón Y Cajal, the father of neuroscience. Santiago Ramón Y Cajal was born 1st May 1852 in Petelia de Aragon, northern Spain. As a child, he wanted to become an artist, a passion which he pursued with dedication, so much so that the artist in him contributed a lot to his success later in life. Like most Spanish family names, Ramón y Cajal's name is made up of the paternal surname Ramón, followed by the maternal surname Cajal. His father was at that time the village surgeon. Cajal received his medical degree from the University of Saragossa in Spain in 1873. In 1887, he became the chair of histology in Barcelona. He set up a lab in his home and, using just a basic microscope, devoted more time to his scientific research, which was on nerve cells. At the same time, in Italy, there was a pathologist by the name Camillo Golgi, who had developed a staining method for microscopy. We all know about Golgi bodies, identified by and named after the same Camillo Golgi. Cajal learned the Golgi staining technique and modified it to document the neuronal structures with precision. Because he was an equally good artist as he was a scientist, his paintings of the neuronal architecture could be considered the greatest scientific work of art that we have seen. In fact, few of these pictures are still used in standard textbooks. Cajal drew freehand. This is different from that method which was available that time called camera lucida. And that technique, which is camera lucida, allows one to trace the image seen in a microscope onto a piece of paper placed next to the microscope. But Cajal did not use this technique. Instead, he meticulously recreated what he saw after putting in some thought on the structures that he saw. And that time he spent analyzing and understanding and interpreting those structures may have allowed him to give a better form of understanding of neurons. And that comprehension may have prepared him to understand the discoveries that influence neuroscience to this day. During Cajal's time, the general belief was that the nervous system was a large interconnected net of protoplasm. The reticular theory, it was called. It was Cajal's accurate documentation with a simple microscope that challenged this theory. Cajal saw gaps between cells in the nervous system, the key observation that led to the neuron doctrine, overthrowing the reticular theory. Though we know more about Cajal from his exemplary work on the brain and its connections, his first love was the retina. He wrote in his autobiography, "The retina is the oldest and most persistent of my laboratory loves." Life never succeeded in constructing a machine so subtly devised and so perfectly adapted to an end as a visual apparatus. As a retinal surgeon, I feel blessed just to think that my love for the retina and my passion for retinal surgery partially aligns with the tissue that gave Cajal the most profound happiness. It was by studying the retina he concluded that the impulses come into a neuron through the dendrite and flows out of it through the axon. The Cajal's law of dynamic polarization. As we see from these drawings of the retina by Cajal and the optic pathways, Cajal's knowledge of one of the most complex tissues in the human body was unparalleled. When Cajal was 25 years old, he joined a Masonic lodge. Cajal's name is found in the Knights. Cajal's name is found in the log of the lodge, Knights of the Night, number 68 of Saragossa. From there's not much data on his degree of involvement in Freemasonry, but his name is also listed in the register of the Grand Lodge of Spain. There is even a lodge in Saragossa that bears his name, Santiago Ramón Y Cajal, Lodge number 35. The writings of Santiago Ramón Y Cajal constitute a significant part of the Hispanic literary heritage. The prestigious Spanish doctor was the author of more than 250,000 books and monographs in which he dealt with various subjects. In these works, he reflected his exceptional skills as an artist, as a scientific illustrator, as a painter of landscape and people, or as a photographer. This year was the 170th birthday of Cajal. The whole world still celebrates this great neuroscientist and look up to his art, his work with awe. The painting exhibitions, the neuroscience workshops named after him. There's a Petila terminology, a nomenclature of interneurons, the proposal for which arose from a meeting devoted to that topic in Cajal's own native town, Petila de Arago. The scores of blogs, the videos dedicated to the life and work of an amazing person who seemed to seamlessly blend the power of art with the drive of scientific rigor. They are all testament to the scientific community's unfathomable gratitude to Santiago Ramón Y Cajal. The Cajal embroidery project, in which over 75 volunteers collaborated across 6 countries to create 81 intricate hand-stitched panels of Ramón Y Cajal's images, which were then curated and displayed by the Edinburgh Neuroscience, was recently reported in Lancet Neurology. The project pays homage to the fascinating history of the Institute and its founder, Santiago Ramón Y Cajal. The output of the Cajal embroidery project, which is documented in the video you will soon see now, serves as a memento of such accomplishment and the power of a neuroscience community to embrace our rich history. There are several structures in the human body named after this great neuroscientist. The Cajal rettious cells are neurons of the embryonic cortical marginal zones that were first described in rodents by Cajal in 1890 and in humans by Retzius in 1893. And they were prominent because they have more than one axons. At present, we know that they are involved in the layering of the cerebral cortex and perhaps in the establishment of early neural circuits in the developing brain. There is an interstitial cell of Cajal type of cells found in the gastrointestinal tract, which serves as pacemakers that trigger gut contraction. And then there is the interstitial nucleus of Cajal located in the midbrain reticular formation. And this nucleus is involved in eye movements, especially vertical saccades. The Cajal bodies are spherical suborganelles found in the nucleus of proliferative cells such as tumor cells and metabolically active cells like neurons. In addition to the above named structures in human body, there is also an asteroid and a small lunar impact crater that is named after Cajal. This is a book by Jeff Hawkins and was published in 2021. I read the first part of the book, which discusses about the concept of reference columns as basic units of intelligence. Our brains have more than 150,000 such columns, and they help us make sense of our life and actions. On the 16th page of this book, the author writes, the first person to look at the detailed circuitry inside the neurocortex was Santiago Ramón Y Cajal. In the late 1800s, staining techniques were discovered that allowed individual neurons in the brain to be seen with a microscope. Cajal used these stains to make pictures of different parts of the brain. He created thousands of images that, for the first time, showed what brains look like at the cellular level. All of Cajal's beautiful and intricate images of the brain were drawn by hand. He ultimately received the Nobel Prize for his work. Here are two drawings that Cajal made of the neocortex. The one on the left shows only the cell bodies of the neurons. The one on the right includes the connection between the cells. These images show a slice across the 2.5 millimeter thickness of the neocortex. And he goes on to write, the first thing that Cajal and others observed was that the neurons in the neocortex appear to be arranged in layers. The layers, which run parallel on the surface of the neocortex, are caused by differences in the size of the neurons and how closely they are packed. Cajal saw 6 layers. A simple interpretation is that each layer of neurons is doing something different. Today, we know that there are dozens of different types of neurons in the neocortex, not 6. Scientists still use the 6-layer terminology. So what Cajal had described that time, even now we are using that 6-layer terminology, it seems. Then he goes on to write, the second observation from these images was that most of the connections between the neurons run vertically between layers. Neurons have tree-like appendages called axons and dendrites that allow them to send information to each other. Most of the axons ran between layers perpendicular to the surface of the neocortex, up and down. This means that information arriving in a region of the neocortex moves mostly up and down between the layers before being sent elsewhere. In the 120 years since Cajal first imaged the brain, thousands of scientists have studied the neocortex to discover as many details as possible about its neurons and circuits. So that is what the impact of such a great neuroscientist is. And the author bases his concepts, the recent concepts of reference columns, on the studies that was done maybe 170 years or 120 years ago. And this book is published in 2021. So you can imagine the kind of impact that the work of Cajal has on the neuroscience frontiers right now. And this picture is in the book is from Cajal's original work. And as I said, even now, these amazingly accurate drawings of the brain by Cajal continues to inspire everyone, especially those working to unravel the mysteries of the human brain. This is another example. This is a chapter from an ebook published recently by the Society of Optics and Photonics and has a picture of Cajal's hand-drawn retina with a description of the great neuroscientist. There is a website called Centro Virtual Cervantes, or the Cervantes Virtual Center, a site created and maintained by the Cervantes Institute of Spain. There's a page dedicated to the life and work of Cajal. There's also a virtual gallery of Cajal's work, and I have shared the link in the description as well as here in the video. I seriously recommend the site for a more in-depth understanding of Cajal's work. I've made a virtual tour of the gallery found in that site at the end of this video. But before that, let us watch the video by the Cajal embroidery project team published in Lancet.
Welcome to the Cajal Embroidery Project 2020. Over the last 5 months, scientists, crafters, artists have all come together from across the world to create a series of embroideries based on the drawings of Ramón y Cajal. The FENS Forum meeting in Glasgow was taking place during the 100th year of the foundation of the Cajal Institute in Madrid. The Host Society Committee thought it would be a good idea to recognise this, and we had planned an exhibition of original Cajal illustrations to be shown at the Hunterian Museum. This embroidery project was meant to complement this exhibition and produce a large physical output that would be available for everyone to see at the meeting. This is the second time the Hunterian Museum has attempted to host such an exhibition. The first was derailed by the 2001 Twin Towers terrorist attack, and this time a global pandemic has intervened. Instead, we hope that you enjoy this virtual version of our embroidery project.
I've been involved in all sorts of textile work, sewing, knitting, and various kinds of embroidery amongst others, since I was wee. I chose one of the most detailed images, thinking that although it would be fairly simple from a stitch point of view, it would also take longer to do, which would free up the less detailed images for those who were newer to embroidery. I like recording the progress on particularly long projects, and so I took a photo from roughly the same angle at regular stages, both when tracing the design onto the fabric and after finishing stitching each strand of embroidery thread. I normally work from home, and this project helped me structure my downtime, so I wasn't worrying about what I'm not able to do, like go out shopping, see friends, and so on during the pandemic lockdown. My photos have worked into a really cool document of my progress, and I'm pleased that I've been able to be part of the project.
For the exceptional work done by Cajal, he was awarded the Nobel Prize along with Camillo Golgi for the contributions to neuroscience. Few researchers have so beautifully integrated art and science as Cajal. Most Nobel laureates have art and crafts as their hobbies. Moreover, scientists have often remarked that such non-scientific activities helped or inspired research. The lives of great men like Cajal, whose artistic skills were as important as his scientific temper, make a strong point to include arts and crafts as a major, important, and integral part of our education. I am really inspired by the work of this great neuroscientist and absolutely enjoyed making this video as a tribute to Santiago Ramón Y Cajal. I hope the life and work of one of the greatest minds in neuroscience inspires you also. Thank you very much for watching this video.